Hi everyone, so I'm here with Darren Joseph today, who is a specialist in expat taxation matters. I'm Adam Fayed, I run adamfayed.com, and we are an expat wealth management organization with clients in over 109 different countries.
Adam, it is an honor and a privilege to be speaking with you. My name is Darren Joseph from HEJ.tax. We're a team that seeks to demystify the sometimes confusing world of international tax. So we work with expats, location-independent entrepreneurs, nomads, so described, anyone basically who would describe themselves as a private client exposed to more than one jurisdiction.
One question I wanted to ask you is, right now there are a few countries, including the United States and Eritrea, although you wonder if Eritrea actually enforced their will. There are certain countries who do buy citizenship, so you have to renounce, like the Facebook co-founder who renounced, and a few others, and I think there's a record number of Americans doing that now every year. But then there have been other countries like South Africa and China, where even if you Google it, technically speaking, they don't tax by citizenship, but they kind of de facto have made some changes in the last 10 years, right? And even the UK, which is relatively liberal, their so-called ties test from HMRC has become stricter. So if you're spending 20 months a year in the UK now, and you've got certain ties, you can be considered a tax resident in the UK. Although the UK is, I would still say, fairly liberal. It's still fairly easy to not be a UK taxpayer as a British person. But do you think going forward, do you expect more countries to go down that American system and just say, right, unless you renounce, you're just paying a certain amount of tax? Or at least make it more and more difficult? So therefore, like, unless you're only spending 2 weeks a year in your home country, more countries are just going to say, you know what, you're paying some tax. I mean, are there any proposals now that you can think of, maybe certain countries that are making it a bit more difficult or trying to go down that American route?
Absolutely, you're correct. Yeah, just like you said, I'm familiar with what we call the big five English-speaking countries: US, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand. And the US, it is what it is. The other four have definitely been making it more difficult for people to exit their tax net. But it's not, as you pointed out, it's not just them. Under certain circumstances in Singapore, if it is that you're a Singapore tax resident and maybe you're going to work with an affiliated company in another jurisdiction on a temporary basis, there are fallback rules, and they'll say, well, it's not being taxed, where you're going to go? Well, Singapore, and Singapore's supposed to be a so-called tax haven. They're quite happy to tax it. The Inland Revenue Authority of Singapore will take that position. So I think, again, these are global movements. This is a global movement. It's not isolated to English-speaking countries. The Europeans, their fallback rules, their exit taxes are being reviewed. Their tax rates are inching up. So, yeah, it definitely, again, among the OECD, i.e. the group of the wealthier countries, this is the status quo. Of course, within the emerging markets, perhaps they're not responsive. And basically, you can see on the list of blacklisted countries, those that appear to be comfortable being outside of the major grouping. So I think as entrepreneurs, as location-independent individuals, one needs to tread carefully. I'm just like you and many people that are looking at this. I straddle between the emerging markets and the developed world personally, as well as with my clients. But even though you may be doing business or operating within an emerging market today, you need to still be cognizant of the rules that exist in the so-called developed world. Because at some point in time, you may want to come back, or you want to migrate your company, or more importantly, you may want to move funds. And therefore, even though the rules where you are don't require it, still play by the rules of the other countries, because you don't know what the future holds.